everyone. Welcome back to Weekday. If you're new here, I just want to take a second to say welcome, and I'm really glad you found your way to this little corner of the internet. And if you've been here before, well then welcome back. Weekday is a space where we talk about real life, the messy parts, the beautiful parts, and the parts we don't always know how to explain out loud. Today, I want to talk about something that I think almost everyone has experienced, but we don't really have a name for it. And that is selective standards. When something is not okay when you do it, but suddenly it becomes perfectly acceptable when someone else does. When someone judges you for a decision and then later ends up making the exact same one. Yeah, that. So let's get into it. Have you ever noticed that sometimes people hold you to a standard that they don't even hold themselves to? Maybe it's a relationship decision. Maybe it's how you parent. Maybe it's something as simple as changing your mind. And when you do it, it's a problem. People have opinions. People talk. People judge. Then one day, the situation changes. And suddenly, the same behavior that was once criticized is now understandable. Now there's compassion. Now there's grace. And you sit there thinking, well, wait a second. Where was that grace when it was me? The truth is, most people don't understand something until they experience it themselves. It's really easy to have opinions about someone else's life when you're standing on the outside looking in. It's easy to say, I would never do that. I would have handled it differently. I can't believe they made that choice. But life has a funny way of humbling us, right? Because sometimes the exact situation you once judged becomes the exact situation you are living. And suddenly, everything looks different. Suddenly, the decision that once seemed so obvious is actually really complicated. Suddenly, the person you judged makes a lot more sense. One thing life has taught me is that humility usually arrives through experience. Not lectures, not opinions, experience. Sometimes the people who judged you the most eventually end up walking a very similar road. And when that happens, something very interesting occurs. They soften. They understand. They realize things aren't always as black and white as they thought. And here's the important part. You don't need to wait for someone to understand you in order for your choices to be valid. Your life does not require an outside approval. Now let's be honest though, because even if we understand all of that, it can still hurt. It can hurt when people judge you. It can hurt when people misunderstand you. It can hurt when people treat you differently for the same thing they later justify. And those feelings are very, very real. But one thing I've been learning slowly is this. People's reactions often say more about their experiences than they do about your decisions. Sometimes judgment is just unfamiliar. Sometimes criticism is just someone speaking from a place they haven't grown past yet. And sometimes people simply don't know what they don't know until they know it. Now here's the tricky part. When someone eventually ends up in the same situation they judged you for, you have a choice. You can throw it back at them and you can say, see, now you know how it feels. Or you can do something different. You can give them the grace you wished that you had received. And I know that's easier said than done, but grace has a funny way of breaking cycles. Because when someone experiences understanding instead of, and I told you so, that's often where real growth happens. At the end of the day, everyone is living life for the first time. No one has all the answers. People are learning, growing, messing up, figuring things out, just like you are and just like I am. So if you're in a season where people don't understand your choices, if you feel judged, if you feel like the rules somehow only apply to you, I just want to remind you of this. You are allowed to make the best decisions you can with the information and emotions you have at the time. And those decisions are valid, even if other people don't understand them yet. I've decided that this week we're not going to be doing a weekly challenge. A bummer, I know. But next week's episode is going to be a little different. Because for the first time, you're not just going to hear me. You're going to see me. And instead of a perfectly planned topic, I want to try something a little more real, a little more human. An episode that's about everything and nothing all at once. The thoughts that show up in the middle of the week. The things we don't always have neat conclusions for. So next week is going to be a little bit more unscripted, but still very intentional. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me here on Weekday. And if this episode resonated with you at all, you can feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And as always, be kind to yourself this week. Life is complicated, but you're doing way better than you think. And I'll see you next time on Weekday. And until then, stay real, stay raw, stay curious.